Well, welcome back to the show, Cheryl Nembhard.
Yeah, it's so good to be back.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it feels like home. Love it.
Well, I'll tell you, you kicked off this month and you're just going to be wrapping up this month with us. Not that it comes to an end, but you know what? Nothing better than chatting with my friend Cheryl. There's many great Canadian heroes that teach us even today how to respond to injustice, right, Cheryl? And I want you to tell us the Harriet Tubman's story and her strong connection to Canada and just some lessons that we can learn from her life.
Mm. Well, Harriet Tubman, I tell you, she is one of my sheroes for sure. She's a well-known American abolitionist, and she was the famous conductor of the Underground Railroad. This is a woman who boldly left her plantation in fear and the dread of night and made a decision once she reached fair shores that she would not just think of herself. And this is the part that really gets me emotional. But she would risk her life over and over and over to bring others to freedom. She also
Wow.
plays a very important role in our history here in Canada. And there's this beautiful sort of marriage of the two stories, as many of the Underground Railroad stations were here in Canada. And in fact, to all slaves who were running for freedom, Canada was referred to as the Promised Land. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They sung about it, they spoke about it, and when they referred to the Promised Land, they were referring to Canada. Harriet Tubman's home base, in fact, is in St. Catharines, where she lived from 1851 to 1861, and she traveled back and forth. But she always felt compelled to do the work of God in liberating African Americans out of slavery. She made that trip to Canada, Lorie, actually over 19 times.
Wow.
And you'd have to understand each time the potential is there of being captured, tortured, death. And she rescued anywhere from 300 to 500 slaves.
Oh, my
I draw
Lord.
some lessons from her life. I think that we all can today, which is one of the things that hits me really hard is to be willing to do the brave thing that God calls you to do and know that He is with you in it, that He will protect you and provide for you and be your harbor and your safety in all of it. And then the last is when faced with injustice, it is a time to not shrink back, but to step forward, to speak up, and to be brave.
Oh man, that is it. I just love her story too, Cheryl. I think recently there was a movie that was released that really depicted it well. And like you said, don't shrink back. Like what an example to us. She literally was willing to lay down her life. I mean, this is the gospel message, right? Like she really lived it out. And there's so many other heroes we could talk about, but tell us about non-Black Canadians, of faith. Like what role did they play in the Underground Railroad?
I love this question, Lorie, because my theater group actually has the privilege of tributizing her. We have a play called Araminta, which is actually Harriet's birth name. She took on Harriet to honor her mother. And so the story of Araminta really highlights the Canadian narrative, the piece that we don't dwell in a lot. And it highlights some non Black allies who risked their life as well, risked isolation and being ostracized from community. They were moved by faith. They were Quakers and felt that slavery in their heart of hearts was immoral. Two people I'd love to highlight for you. One is William King. He was an Irish-born minister and an abolitionist. He founded the Elgin Settlement, which we know today. It was a community of former African-American slaves in southwestern Ontario, and it's a great place to visit if anyone's ever thinking of taking a road trip. And this one I love the most is Jane Walls. She's actually a character in my play. She is a brave woman who had a safe house that people would come with a secret knock. They'd get sort of their plans through stations to get there. She literally documented over 500 slaves. She gave them food, shelter, a place to hide. Her and her husband, John Walls, and you can see their shack today. They were involved very deeply during the time of the Fugitive Slave Law, which was a law that said that even if a slave had found freedom built a home, a new life, that if there was a bounty hunter, which were always coming into Canada looking for slaves, that they could literally grab them and bring them back. And so we've seen that in the movie 12 Years a Slave. There's a good example for those that are wondering what that looks like, where someone could be free and captured and brought back into captivity. So the walls were
Right.
instrumental in helping those who were settling continue to stay safe and to find safe harbor. They had a 12-acre property in Elgin, and it was called the
Mhm.
Refugee Home Society, just so you know.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, you look through history where people are, I mean, there's so many different examples of the evil of injustice and racism. And we need allies. There's always the hero of allies in the story that come alongside and take up the cause, right? On behalf of those who are in need of help. And I think that's a real word for us today. Do you want to speak to that? What it means to be an ally today?
Yeah, it's funny because it really is. I feel the charge for us as believers, but more importantly for the Church of Canada. I feel
Mm.
that it is our time to be better allies than we have ever been in this history's time. It is time for us to step into authentic allyship, not performative. And I've done a little breakdown of allyship real quick, just to help
Okay,
people
great.
understand what the BIPOC community is looking for, people of color. We're looking for allies to acknowledge racism and white supremacy wherever and whenever and wherever they see it. And acknowledging means to address, doesn't mean to just look and observe and walk away, but to
Right.
acknowledge it, to address it, to call it out.
Yeah.
The L and L is to be in a posture of listening and learning. That's the
Yeah.
only way that we can educate ourselves, that we can find empathy, compassion, understand the stories and the narratives that are being told. We need to be in a posture of listening and learning. I think
Mm.
once you do that, the why is easy. We're asking that believers and churches yield space to BIPOC
Mm.
voices,
Yeah.
allow the Indigenous, allow those of color to speak, to share their story, to share their hopes and dreams, that we can partner and come together and allow those voices that are gifted, brilliant, skilled, just like everyone else's, to be amplified
Yeah. Yeah.
in this season. The S is to stand alongside, but it also has a double meaning, which is I want to share. To be an ally, you have to be willing to put skin in the game. And that means that
Yeah.
sometimes allyship costs something, Lori, and it could be
Yeah.
discomfort, it could be losing a friend, it could be
Right.
challenging a family member, it could be being the one that does the awkward thing of saying that's not an appropriate joke. And I'm
Yeah.
not comfortable. And so being an ally means that we're willing to pay the cost of standing for truth and righteousness.
Right.
And so, yeah, H, we want to help. We want to ask you to help us move the needle forward in this movement of anti racism by not just uh, being affected by what's going on and saying, oh, that's so bad, but actually being an active person who is anti-racist. That's the big word. So you are
Mm-hmm.
looking to shut down, to you know, denounce, to stop, to block racism. It's a different posture. It's very active. It's
Yeah.
very intentional.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. Oh, I
But
most importantly, believers, we need to pray.
yeah.
We need to pray. Intercession. I am a woman that believes that prayer changes this nation. And
Yes.
we need to
Amen.
cry out to
Yeah.
our God, who is the one who can help us. And we need to pray
Yeah.
for the church, that they
Yeah.
will have wisdom to know what to do, the bravery to say what they need to say, and the
Yeah.
boldness to walk in that truth and that
Mhm.
justice. And then the last, P, when you've made a decision to be an advocate, to be an ally, we're asking that that allyship not be performative. What do I mean by that? I
Mm.
mean that we're not following trends. We're not doing something for optics sake because the messaging looks
Mhm.
good or it's good for our brand, but there's a real change of heart that has happened and we are walking that out. I really
Yeah.
believe that social justice, as Cornell West said, is it's what love looks like in public.
Mm. So good, Cheryl. Well, thank you for that, for giving us sort of handles to walk through what it looks like. And I thank you for your example, for your ability to teach and educate, for more importantly, the life that you live. And this is a real time in our nation. And this month of Black History Month has been a wonderful time of relearning and learning and engaging and stepping into more active ways to be allies. Thank you, Cheryl. Bless you in all you do.
Thank you. And just thank you for all the work that you guys are doing as well.
Okay.